The idea is, guerrilla skepticism is not popular, okay? I get a lot of flack about it. I just did a thing for 1023, which is homeopathy. We overdosed on, Susan took belladonna, I took phosphorus, Susan's son took a drug that they use for lethal injections. The point is, we did this to show that there's nothing in it. And it happened all over the world. And yet, I write for Skeptic Blog, and people are coming down on me. This isn't effective. You're just being contrary. So it's not a popular stance to take, but I see no alternative. Yes?
One of the interesting things I see about this is when James Randi had pulled a few of his hoaxes, they weren't well taken either.
Right.
And I don't know if you agree with this opinion, but when you actually do these guerrilla skepticism techniques, you have to expect the flack, but having it recorded in history seems to be the real value of
That's
it.
right.
Because we go back and, you know, I mean, years from now, someone could stumble onto this 1023 thing and go,
Yeah.
you know, and at that point it won't
That's a good
seem,
point.
you know, just like Randy's hoaxes. When you look back on them now, they're not insulting, they're funny.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think hindsight, you know, will show, history will show that, you know, we're not doing the wrong thing. It just shocks people who change. They don't want to take change. They're not used to having somebody explain this. We did a Paracon. The IIG did a table at Paracon, and we were amazed that there were great people, very nice people, who just didn't know there was any other way to think about it. They just didn't know what skepticism was. Mm-hmm. We said to them, well, did you ever think maybe this is what happened? They were like, no, wow, I never thought of that. That could have been a trick or whatever. So I think we're in an era where there's so much paranormal thought that we have to counter that with in-your-face things and let time take its toll. And, you know, the pioneers get all the arrows is a great expression, you know. But we're not even pioneers, because if you look at the history of, in my case, magicians, there was Keller, there was Thurston, Houdini, Blackstone, all these guys, they knew a trick when they saw it. And I mean, they couldn't believe it that people were buying into mediumship and buying into ghosts, and they just, you know, and again, in Houdini's case, I think he saw an opportunity to make some money, and I think that Penn and Teller see an opportunity to make a little money. I don't see any problem with that, okay, because you have to eat. Along the way, while you're raising your flag and making your point, you have to eat. And I don't think there's any skeptics that I know who are even half as greedy as the John Edwards and the Sylvia Browns. And I know how Sylvia works because I've watched her for years and years and years, and it's just so blatant to me. It's not even good cold reading. Now, we're in an era where, in the old days, mentalists and people who did spiritualistic phenomenon, you had to have some chops. You know, you had to have an acting ability. You had to be able to do something and back it up. Today, anything goes. Just get out on the stage and just let it rip. Let it rip. I could go through this audience, do the same thing. They don't even work. They don't even work hard. They don't even do any of the techniques that could really make it. If one of those people wanted to really make a dent, they could, but they're lazy. So it's up to us to pick up the slack. Okay? If they're lazy and we know they're doing wrong, there's no excuse. So I guess my summation is, do something. You know, don't complain and say, the world is terrible. What are we going to do? Go out and do something. Or you don't even have to go out. You've got the internet. You've got podcasts. You've got all these ways to make a point. Do something. Because it's not going to get any better. The worse the economy gets, the worse, the more of these people are going to come out of the woodwork. Because they know that people want to hear good news. And I can tell you good news, your life's going to get better. Oh, the lines in your palm tell me, oh yeah, you're going to get a new wardrobe. And people say, well, how do you know that? It's there on your clothesline. There's entertainment, and there's playing blatant criminality of the worst kind. And for me, it's clear. So my job is to take the clarity that I have, try and share it with other people. And I think humor is really important. But it better be pretty black, otherwise you'll just come off as a comedian. So, yes, you got a question? I'll take questions in the back.
It looks to us as if the skepticism society is trying to rip itself apart.
Well, but see, how when you rip it apart is in...
People are negative just for the sake of being negative, rather than saying, okay, look, that was a bit of a cheesy stunt, but you got the story across.
Right.
And
Well, there's another line that says, give a skeptic an inch and he'll measure it. In other words, and that's what I've noticed on my blog. My intention is what comes through. And I think somebody said last night, we were talking about it, you can't just, on my blog, if I read the feedback, I don't even want to do anymore. I'm like, so, but I can't pay attention to that because I know, and you've given me a little insight, down the road it'll play its way out, you know. So we may be ripping ourselves apart a little bit, but that's just politics. That's gonna, whenever you get a group of people together, I mean, I've been a member of the Magic Castle for 25 years. It's just, they're like, you know, a feeding frenzy on each other. Oh, you do this way? Oh no, I learned it this way. Oh, so-and-so does it this way. Why aren't you doing it this way? You just can't, you just do it your own way. That's one thing I learned. Don't listen. If you go from your heart, you're gonna get to the right place. So yeah, I think there is a lot of, I mean, 2 years ago at CAM, all the different skeptical groups are going to come together, and we have a major announcement. All the different skeptic groups are going to merge into one. Yeah, right. Sure. It's like all the different supermarkets are going to be one big supermarket. No, you know. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure.
It does. It's called Walmart.
In other words, I think what you have to do is find the baseline, find the commonality that you have with other people, and work with that. And that's what CFI is doing with the new IIG, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. That's why Susan and I are here, is to because we want to get the IIG, who is independent investigation groups, are going to start making affiliates. They're all over the place. There's a lot of people who think just like us, but they're looking for a way to come together. So, yes.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. You called on me.
Don't get excited now,
You were
Baxter.
talking about, just take action. Just get out.
Well, you have to
something.
put some thought into it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, I mean, that's one of the interesting things. I mean, I want to point to a local skeptic here that nobody knows, Reed. He was really, in my opinion, because I think he's kind of a jerk, he was one of the really big armchair skeptics. He could sit from his armchair and just rip everybody apart, and then all of a sudden, he just made this big contribution, I think, to skepticism by doing Skepticamp. And I think that's totally a guerrilla skepticism approach, and it's one that I never would have thought of. So it's...
Well, I think at a certain point, if you're committed to, what's in your heart, you just have to get up and do something. It's like the highest form of Buddhism is boredom. Because you can only sit so long until you stand up and say, I can't stand it, I've got to do something. So that's probably what happened, right?
Yeah, well, I think there are risks involved in any sort of innovation.
Yeah.
With Skepticamp, we started back in 2007. We weren't really sure where it would go, how it would take hold, because the tech community where these sorts of events started is very different from the skeptical community. Skeptics most of us are fairly passive, the armchair skeptics that the pastor talked about, and where the tech community is a lot of expertise spread across the entire community. And so Skepticamp, we're doing something a little bit different, and so it may take hold, may become a worldwide phenomenon. We don't know yet.
But the point is, you're doing something. I mean, even an armchair skeptic is doing something.